Have you ever realized that the biggest betrayal in your life wasn't done by a stranger, but by the one person who promised to put you first? I never imagined that would become my story. When I married Daniel, I truly believed I had found my forever. He wasn't perfect, but neither was I. We laughed together, dreamed together, and spent countless nights planning a future that felt bright and full of hope. We talked about buying a little house, traveling across the country, and someday raising children who would grow up surrounded by love. At least, that's what I believed. If someone had told me that one day I'd walk away from my marriage with nothing but 2 suitcases and a broken heart, I would have laughed. I would have said they didn't know my husband. I was wrong. The first warning signs didn't seem important. They were so small that I convinced myself they didn't matter. Whenever Daniel's mother called, everything else stopped. It didn't matter if we were having dinner, watching a movie, or celebrating an anniversary. If her name appeared on his phone, he answered immediately. Sometimes our conversations ended halfway through because she wanted advice about something that could have waited until morning. I told myself that he was just a caring son. After all, loving your parents isn't a bad thing. But there is a difference between loving your family and allowing them to control your marriage. I didn't understand that difference until it was too late. His mother, Linda, had strong opinions about everything. She had opinions about where we should live, how I decorated our apartment, what meals I cooked, how much money we spent, even the clothes I wore. At first, she disguised her criticism as helpful advice. "You'd look prettier in lighter colors. I think Daniel likes homemade meals better. You know, if I were you, I'd keep the house cleaner." Every sentence ended with a smile, every comment sounded polite. But somehow, every word made me feel smaller. Whenever I mentioned it to Daniel, he'd sigh and say the same thing. "That's just how Mom is. Don't take it personally." So I didn't. I smiled. I stayed quiet. I kept trying harder. I cooked better dinners. I cleaned more often. I bought clothes I didn't even like because I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd finally accept me. She never did. The harder I tried, the more impossible her standards became. Looking back now, I realize something important. Some people don't want you to improve. They simply want someone to blame. I just didn't know I had become that person. Then family dinners became a weekly tradition. Every Sunday, we drove to Linda's house. The table always looked perfect. The food was always amazing, but somehow, I never felt welcome. She complimented everyone except me. She laughed with everyone except me. Whenever I shared an opinion, she'd quickly change the subject. Sometimes I caught her exchanging silent looks with Daniel's sister before they smiled at each other. It made me wonder what was being said when I wasn't in the room. Still, I convinced myself I was overthinking everything. I loved my husband. And I believed love meant being patient. I believed that if I showed enough kindness, everything would eventually get better. I had no idea that patience without respect slowly turns into pain. And the worst part? Daniel noticed every single moment. He saw the comments. He heard the criticism. He watched me force a smile after every family dinner. But he never said a word. Not once. I kept waiting for him to defend me, to tell his mother to stop, to remind everyone that I was his wife. Instead, he chose silence. And sometimes silence hurts more than cruel words. I wish I could tell you that things improved after that. I wish I could say we found happiness again. But the truth is, the real betrayal hadn't even happened yet. And when it finally did, it would change my life forever. After that, I started paying attention to the little things I had ignored for months. Once you notice a pattern, it's impossible to unsee it. Daniel wasn't just close to his mother. He depended on her. Every decision we made somehow became a family discussion. If we wanted to buy a new couch, he called Linda first. If we planned a weekend trip, he asked what she thought. Even when I received a promotion at work, his first reaction wasn't to congratulate me, it was to tell his mother. Sometimes she knew our news before I had a chance to call my own parents. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. One evening, I finally asked him the question that had been living in my mind for weeks. Do you ever make a decision without asking your mom first? He looked surprised. Why would that bother you? He asked. Because this is supposed to be our marriage, I replied softly. Sometimes it feels like there are 3 people in it. He laughed, not because he thought I was funny, because he thought I was being dramatic. You worry too much, he said. Mom only wants what's best for us. Those words stayed with me. What's best for us? The strange thing was, no one ever asked me what I thought was best. A few weeks later, Daniel came home with exciting news. My mom found the perfect house for us, he said with a huge smile. I blinked. She found it? Yeah, she already talked to the realtor. We should go see it this weekend. I stared at him. We've never even discussed what kind of house we want. His smile faded. It doesn't matter. Trust me. Mom has great taste. That sentence felt like a punch to the heart. I wasn't looking for a perfect house. I was looking for a husband who wanted to build a future with me. Instead, I felt like a guest in someone else's life. Still, I agreed to visit the house. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it would all work out. When we arrived, Linda was already waiting in the driveway as if she were the one buying the home. She walked through every room, pointing at walls, furniture, and decorations. This room will be Daniel's office. This kitchen needs brighter cabinets. And this guest room is where I'll stay when I visit. She spoke with complete confidence. Then she turned toward me. Oh, and you'll probably want to repaint the bedroom. Your taste is a little dark. She smiled. Everyone else smiled too. I forced one. Inside, I felt invisible. On the drive home, I stayed quiet. Daniel finally noticed. What's wrong now? I looked out the window before answering. Did you notice your mom planned our entire future today? He sighed. You're making problems where there aren't any. That sentence broke something inside me. Because I finally understood, it wasn't that he couldn't see what was happening. He simply didn't think my feelings mattered enough. From that day on, I stopped arguing. Not because everything was okay, because I was exhausted. People think relationships end after one huge fight. Most don't. They end after hundreds of tiny moments where one person feels unheard. One evening, I found an envelope on the kitchen counter. It was already open. Inside was a job offer from another city, a position I had applied for months earlier, a promotion, better pay, a fresh start. I looked at Daniel. When did this arrive? A couple of days ago, he answered casually. A couple of days? I repeated. Why didn't you tell me? He shrugged. My mom didn't think moving was a good idea. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. I wasn't angry anymore. I was shocked. The decision about my career, my future, had been discussed with his mother before it was discussed with me. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. I wasn't competing with another woman. I was competing with the place his mother held in his life, and no matter how hard I tried, I was always going to come second. But I still had no idea that the worst humiliation of my life was waiting for me at the next family dinner. And after that night, nothing would ever be the same. The following Sunday felt different. I couldn't explain why, but I had a heavy feeling in my chest from the moment we pulled into Linda's driveway. The house was full of people. Daniel's sister was there with her husband. A few cousins had stopped by. Even Linda's closest friends were sitting around the dining table, laughing as if they were celebrating something. As soon as we walked in, Linda greeted Daniel with a warm hug. There you are. We were waiting for you. Then she looked at me. Oh, you're here too. She smiled, but her words carried no warmth. I told myself to stay calm. Maybe today would be different. Maybe I was expecting the worst because of everything that had happened lately. Dinner began, and everyone talked over one another. I tried to join the conversation, but every time I spoke, someone interrupted me. After a while, I stopped trying. Then Linda tapped her glass with a spoon. I have something I'd like to say. The room became quiet. She looked around the table before smiling at Daniel. My son deserves the very best in life. Daniel smiled back. So does every good husband. Everyone nodded. Then Linda turned toward me. But sometimes, love makes people choose the wrong person. I felt every eye in the room shift toward me. She continued speaking as if I weren't even sitting there. I've always believed Daniel settled too quickly. A few uncomfortable laughs echoed around the table. I looked at Daniel. Surely he would stop this. Surely he would tell his mother that enough was enough. Instead, he lowered his eyes to his plate. He didn't say a single word. Linda kept going. There are women who lift a family up, and there are women who pull it down. Someone quietly whispered, "That's true." My heart was pounding. I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I was heartbroken. Finally, I looked directly at my husband. "Daniel," my voice barely came out, "are you really going to let this happen?" For a second, the room was completely silent. Then he looked at me, not with anger, not with love, just indifference. "I don't think Mom means any harm." Those words hit harder than anything Linda had said all evening. In that moment, I realized something painful. The betrayal wasn't coming from my mother-in-law. It was coming from the man who had promised to protect our marriage. I slowly stood up from my chair. "I've spent years trying to earn this family's respect," I said quietly. "I changed who I was because I thought maybe one day I'd finally belong." No one spoke. I was wrong. I picked up my purse. Linda folded her arms. "If you're leaving because you can't handle honest opinions, maybe that's for the best." I looked at her. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of her. "No," I answered calmly. "I'm leaving because I finally learned the difference between honesty and cruelty." Then I turned toward Daniel one last time. "I didn't lose my marriage tonight. I discovered I never truly had one." Without waiting for an answer, I walked toward the front door. No one followed me. No one called my name. The silence behind me told me everything I needed to know. When I reached my car, I sat there for several minutes with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I cried harder than I had in years, not because my marriage was ending, but because I had spent so long blaming myself for a problem I never created. As I wiped away my tears, my phone buzzed. It was Daniel. For one brief moment, hope returned. Maybe he had finally chosen me. Maybe he had walked out of that house. Maybe he was coming to apologize. I answered immediately. His first words crushed every bit of hope I had left. "Mom's upset," he said. "You should come back and apologize." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything that had happened, he wasn't asking if I was okay. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't defending me. He was asking me to apologize to the people who had humiliated me. That was the exact moment something inside me changed. My tears stopped. My hands became steady. My voice was calm. I whispered just 4 words. "No, I'm done." Then I ended the call. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like. I didn't know where I would live. I didn't know how I would rebuild my life. But for the first time in years, I felt free. Little did I know, walking away would be the beginning of the greatest chapter of my life. And months later, the man who chose his mother over his wife would come knocking on my door, begging for a second chance. That night, I didn't drive back home. I drove to my older sister Emily's apartment. It was almost midnight when I knocked on her door. The moment she saw my face, she didn't ask a single question. She simply wrapped her arms around me. And somehow that silent hug said everything I needed to hear. For the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend I was okay. The next morning, I woke up expecting dozens of missed calls from Daniel. There were only 3. None of them asked how I was feeling. The first text read, "Mom didn't sleep well because of what happened." The second said, "Can we please fix this? Just apologize so everyone can move on." The third message hurt the most. "You're making this harder than it has to be." I stared at the screen in disbelief. Not once did he write, "Are you okay?" Not once did he say, "I'm sorry." That was all the closure I needed. A week later, I returned to our house while Daniel was at work. Emily came with me. I packed my clothes, my books, family photos, and the little coffee mug my father had given me years ago. Everything else stayed behind. As I stood in the empty bedroom one last time, memories rushed through my mind. The laughter, the promises, The dreams we had made together. For a moment, I almost cried again. Then I remembered that dinner. I remembered Daniel sitting silently while his mother humiliated me. The tears disappeared. Some memories deserve to stay in the past. Before leaving, I placed my wedding ring on the kitchen table with a short handwritten note. I hope one day you understand that a marriage cannot survive when one person is always asked to come second. Then I walked out without looking back. The following weeks weren't easy. I had to find a small apartment. I worked extra hours. Some nights I came home completely exhausted. There were evenings when the silence felt overwhelming. I questioned myself more than once. Had I given up too quickly? Should I have stayed and fought harder? But every time those thoughts appeared, I reminded myself of one simple truth. You cannot fight for a relationship alone. It takes two people to protect a marriage. I had been fighting by myself for years. One afternoon, something unexpected happened. The company officially offered me the promotion I had almost turned down. The job was in another city, higher salary, better opportunities, a chance to begin again. Months earlier, I would have asked Daniel what he thought. Now I only asked myself one question. What do I want? For the first time in a long time. The answer came easily. I accepted the offer. Moving wasn't just about changing cities. It was about changing my life. My new apartment wasn't large. The furniture didn't match. The walls were plain. But every decision inside that home was mine. No one criticized the paint color. No one judged how I decorated. No one told me I wasn't good enough. It felt peaceful. Slowly, I started smiling again. I made new friends at work. I joined a weekend book club. I started hiking on Saturday mornings. Little by little, I stopped surviving and started living. One evening, almost 8 months after I left, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in a long time. It was Daniel. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. A minute later, another message appeared. Please, can we talk? I finally understand what you were trying to tell me. I didn't answer, not because I hated him, but because healing had taught me something important. Not every message deserves a reply. The next day, another text arrived. Mom was wrong, I was wrong too. I read it twice, then I put my phone away. Some apologies come too late. Some people only understand your value after they've lost you. A week later, there was a knock on my apartment door. When I looked through the peephole, my heart stopped. Standing there, holding a small bouquet of flowers and looking older than I remembered, was Daniel. And judging by the look on his face, life had not been kind to him since the day I walked away. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring through the peephole. I never imagined this moment would actually come. The man who had watched me walk away without a fight was now standing outside my door. He looked different. His shoulders were slumped. The confidence he used to carry was gone. Dark circles rested under his eyes, and the smile I once loved had disappeared. He knocked again. Please, he said softly. I know you're home. I took a deep breath and opened the door just enough to speak. What do you want, Daniel? He looked relieved just to see me. I just want 5 minutes. I hesitated. Then I stepped aside. He walked in quietly, looking around my small apartment. It's nice, he said. I smiled politely. It feels like home. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. I owe you an apology. I folded my arms and waited. I should have protected you, he admitted. Every time my mom criticized you, I stayed quiet. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but I wasn't. I was hurting you. His voice shook. I see that now. Months ago, those words would have meant everything to me. Now, they felt like echoes from a life I'd already left behind. What changed? I asked. He lowered his head. After you left, nothing felt right. He explained that the house had become painfully quiet. Family dinners weren't the same. His mother still had opinions about everything. Only now, there was no one left to blame except him. The same controlling behavior he had ignored for years was now directed at him. She questioned his choices, criticized his spending, told him how to live, For the first time in his life, he experienced what I had lived through every single day. "I finally understood," he whispered. "I should have listened to you." I nodded slowly. "I'm glad you understand now." Hope filled his eyes. "So, can we start over?" That question hung in the air between us. I looked around my apartment, the framed photos from my hiking trips, the books I had chosen, the little plants growing on the windowsill. Every corner reminded me of the woman I had become after leaving. Then I looked back at Daniel. "I've already started over." His face fell. "I still love you," he said. "I know," I answered gently, "but love isn't always enough." He opened his mouth to speak, but I continued. "I begged you to stand beside me. I wasn't asking you to choose between your mother and your wife. I was asking you to respect our marriage. You never did." A tear rolled down his cheek. "I was afraid of disappointing my mom." I gave a small, sad smile. "And because of that, you disappointed the person who trusted you the most." The room fell silent again. Finally, he stood up. "I guess this is goodbye." I walked him to the door. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. "I really did lose the best thing that ever happened to me." I didn't answer. Some lessons can't be softened. They have to be lived. After he left, I closed the door and leaned against it for a moment. I wasn't happy that he was hurting. Revenge had never been about making him suffer. The greatest revenge was something much quieter. It was becoming someone who no longer needed the apology she once waited for. A few months later, I heard through mutual friends that Daniel had moved into a small apartment of his own. He was rebuilding his life, too. I genuinely hoped he would learn from his mistakes. As for me, I received another promotion. I made friends who felt like family. I laughed more than I had in years. And for the first time since my wedding day, I looked in the mirror and recognized myself again. If there's one thing this journey taught me, it's this. Never shrink yourself just to earn someone's approval. The people who truly love you won't ask you to become smaller so they can feel bigger. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes it's the first step toward finding yourself again. And looking back now, I don't remember the day my marriage ended. I remember the day my life finally began. If you've stayed with me until the end, thank you. For a long time, I believed I had failed as a wife. I replayed every argument in my mind. I wondered if I should have been quieter, more patient, more understanding. I kept asking myself what I could have done differently. But healing has a funny way of changing your perspective. One day you stop asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" Instead, you start asking, "Why did I accept so little?" That question changed everything. I realized that love isn't measured by how much pain you're willing to tolerate. It isn't about staying silent to avoid conflict or sacrificing your self-respect just to keep someone else comfortable. Real love is built on respect. It's built on trust. And it's built on two people choosing each other every single day. Looking back, I don't hate Daniel. I don't even hate Linda. Holding on to anger would only keep me tied to a chapter I've already closed. I hope Daniel becomes the kind of husband who listens before it's too late. I hope Linda someday understands that loving your child doesn't mean controlling their marriage, and I hope I never again ignore my own voice just to make someone else happy. Life has a way of teaching us difficult lessons. Mine came through heartbreak, yours may come in a different form, but no matter what you're facing, never forget this. You deserve to be heard, you deserve to be respected, and you deserve to be loved without having to earn your place in someone's life. Walking away was the hardest decision I ever made, but it also became the bravest. Because the moment I chose myself, I finally found the peace I'd been searching for all along. So if you're holding on to a relationship where you're constantly asked to stay silent, constantly made to feel like you're never enough, remember this. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the healthiest decision you'll ever make. Thank you for listening to my story. If it reminded you of your own journey, I hope it also reminded you that better days are possible. Sometimes the ending you fear the most becomes the beginning that saves your life.